So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Famida Kapadia. I am the founder and CEO of Amplify MedTech. I've been in the MedTech field for over 20 years, and I've worked with hundreds of different startups in the region. And my mission for starting Amplify MedTech was to develop a collaborative MedTech ecosystem in this region so that we could promote collaboration, networking, and sharing of resources amongst all the MedTech ecosystem stakeholders so that we can really create a vibrant and sustainable ecosystem focused on MedTech in the region. We launched Amplify MedTech in November 2024. And so over the last few months, we have been offering educational events very specifically tailored to MedTech. You are in one of those events today. We also offer workshops. So we currently have an SBI or STTR workshop ongoing for those of you who are planning to apply for the September deadline for the NIH SBI or STTR. We have a workshop ongoing right now. If you're interested in how getting your a proposal review before you submit the grant, please feel free to reach out and we can help you with the proposal review before you submit the grant. And then we also host networking events. So we had one last week. We had the MedTech Mixer in collaboration with the Howard County Economic Development Agency and the Fisher School of Biomedical Devices. And we talked about fundraising, and we had a startup and an investor give us very candid feedback on fundraising in the MedTech field. So stay tuned and keep engaged so that you can continue benefiting from the events that we are hosting to support the ecosystem. We serve everyone in the ecosystem because no one can work alone. Whether you're a service provider, whether you're a startup, whether you're an incubator or an accelerator, whether you're an inventor, everyone needs to work together and work with each other in order to build and grow your businesses. And so we are here to support everyone in the ecosystem. We create impact by creating collaboration, facilitating access to resources, community engagement, and the goal is to support economic growth and promote sustainability in the region. Our core values obviously are collaboration. We are all about collaboration. We don't want to build this alone. We are not building this alone. And we heavily collaborate with a lot of ecosystem partners. Jessica here, she's a part of Nucleate Baltimore, one of our collaborators. We also have Sephora from TEDCO, who has also been a strong supporter and collaborator from the very beginning. We want to accelerate inclusive innovation, which will promote the economic development and sustainability in the region. I apologize. I have not had an opportunity to update this, but our next event is going to be in August. It's on August 28th. And it's going to be on product market fit. So stay tuned for our upcoming events. And I'll keep this on for a moment. In case you don't follow us on LinkedIn, please follow us on LinkedIn so that you can get updates about our upcoming activities and events so that we can continue supporting you. But with that, I am very excited to host Palash and Leslie today or to discuss about IP strategies. And so to help us get started, I would like to turn it over to Leslie and Palash so that they can introduce themselves.
I'll go first. I'm Leslie Dalglish, and I live in the North Dallas area. I graduated from Vanderbilt University with electrical engineering and math a lot of years ago, and then went to the University of Minnesota Law School. Afterwards, I went to work for a large IP firm that did both litigation and prosecution. At that time, I did more litigation than prosecution, but eventually I pivoted over to prosecution. And for anybody who's new to IP, litigation is basically where you go in and you defend your patent if you have a patent, or you sue someone for infringing your patent. So, and then prosecution is, which is what I do now, is you work with inventors to and companies to write patent applications, submit them to the patent office, and then what we call prosecute them until you eventually get an issued patent. So that's what I do. So I worked with that large IP firm for a number of years, and then I moved to Dallas and went to work for a much smaller firm that was only IP prosecution, and I did that for about 8 years. And then a few of us started a new firm, which is Alliance IP, which is where I work now, and we've been in business for about 8 years. So my background, or the types of work that I do, spans a lot of different technologies, pretty much most technologies except for like chemical patent applications. But I have a lot of experience in computer hardware and software, in medical technologies. I've represented medical device startups, and then wireless technologies and consumer product technologies. And yeah, so that's basically my background.
Hello,
Welcome,
everyone.
Leslie.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Palash Basu. I have over a decade of experience as a patent attorney, and I have worked at large law firms as well as specialty IP boutiques. I have a degree in aerospace engineering from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and a law degree from Northwestern University School of Law in Chicago. I have experience across a wide range of technologies, but specifically in medical device technologies, diagnostic software, artificial intelligence, bioinformatics, and in general, I've done a lot of work over the years in software patenting. I help clients prepare and prosecute their patent applications and help manage their portfolios, both in US and foreign jurisdictions. I have advised clients across all stages of product development, from doing a competitive landscape analysis, invention harvesting, identifying potential patents, claiming strategies, how to design around competitive patents, competitors' patents, performing risk assessments, performing and writing opinions on patentability and freedom to operate. And um, in addition, I also have significant experience performing IP due diligence for mergers and acquisitions, as well as negotiating and drafting commercial aspects or IP aspects of commercial agreements for licensing, technology transfer, joint development, and IP procurement. So I started my career as a litigator, but for the vast majority of the last 10 years, 10 plus years, I have been involved in patent preparation, prosecution, and counseling and IP tech transactions. So that's a little bit of background about myself, but I'm really excited to join Leslie and Famida here and talk about IP in the medtech space.
Thank you, and welcome, Palash. So to help us get started, and let's set the stage, assuming that, we'll have people at different stages in their product development or in their IP status. Let's start with some basics. When do you think a company or an inventor should think about filing IP? And what are some of the considerations for IP filing, especially if you are in the medtech field where there's a significant amount of research or ideation before we get to product development? When should an inventor think about their IP strategy?
Let me lay out the landscape a little bit here, and then I would love Leslie's input with this question. I think companies should think about IP from the moment of ideation. They do not necessarily have to pursue IP protection right away, but they should be IP minded. They should have awareness of what they are creating and what kind of IP they are eligible for. And in this regard, I should mention what are the different kinds of IP. Patents protect structural and functional aspects of a product. design patents protect the overall look and ornamental design of the product, not the functional aspects. Trademarks protect branding of the product. Trade dress protects the commercial look of the product. And copyright protects the a particular expression of, say, a software code or something that is creative of the product. If for software oriented inventions. And then there is also trade secret. There are certain trade secrets can cover a broad range of information, but they can be reverse engineered, and it depends on how effectively you can protect trade secrets. So a lot of the times companies would come up with innovations that they can consider for trade secret or patents, depending on where they are. So that's the overall lay of the land in IP. In terms of considerations, I think, like I said, it's really important to think about IP from the moment of ideation. It's also important to be cognizant of public disclosure or sale effects, and what a potential disclosure such as a sale or an offer for sale or a conference paper can have on IP filings. I'll let Leslie take up with more detail from here.
Yes, I completely agree with Palash about the needing to think about it from the very beginning. Certainly when you come up with your core technology, even before maybe it's completely developed. I think it's really important to engage a patent attorney, even if you don't pursue patent protection, so that they can kind of give you some guidelines on how you should go about during the product development, what you can say to other people and how you can present it. Because medical device startups, any kind of startup there, it's so exciting and you have this product and you can't wait to share it with the world. But the problem is that if you go out and share it, you could be foreclosing the opportunity to protect that intellectual property in the future. And if you can't protect it with IP, then it gives any other competitor out there, potentially a competitor with a lot more money than you have, to come in and make and use your device and nudge you out of the market. So one of the things that you can certainly do at the very beginning, even if you don't pursue patent protection or the other kinds of protection that Palash laid out, is that you can engage with an attorney, or actually you can even, probably find one yourself, but I would recommend that you have an attorney look at it. Get an NDA and a non-disclosure agreement, and make sure that you use that with contractors, with advisors, with anybody else that you are talking to about this, about your invention. That's very important, because if you don't, then it could be seen as a public disclosure. And once it is a public disclosure, then that starts the bar ticking. In some countries, and actually most countries, they don't even have a grace period. So a public disclosure forecloses your opportunity to ever file a patent application on that technology that is disclosed in those countries. In the US, we have a sort of a 1-year grace period. It's narrow, but we do have it. So once it's publicly disclosed, you could file it within a year. If somebody comes in and files the same technology, a patent application on that same technology, then they're going to win, because we are a first to file country. So if somebody else files before you file, then they will be entitled to that technology. Although, well, there are some caveats to that, but it gets a little bit into the weeds. But one thing I would like to say, and this is why it's important to, I think, engage with an attorney who can lay out these scenarios for you, is that even if you have an NDA in place with somebody that you're talking to, with a company or a manufacturer, for example, if you make an offer to sell your product once it is at a point where you can license it or sell it, that NDA is not going to protect you. That is going to start your bar running. And a lot of people don't understand that, or most people probably don't understand that unless they work in this field. So that's just something that to be aware of. And, I agree with Palash that is start early and make sure that you know what the bounds are and what you should do to make sure you have the opportunity to file a patent application, so should you choose to do so.
Wonderful. So you talked about the 1 year grace period. So let's delve a little bit deeper into that. Is it 1 year grace from the time you file a provisional to the non-provisional? When we say first to file, is it first to file a provisional or first to file a non-provisional? Or is it 1 year grace from, let's say you're a researcher, you invented something, you went to a conference, and you disclosed your invention and you haven't filed your IP. Is it the 1 year grace period from that disclosure? Can you please talk us through that?
Yeah, there are different 1 year periods, so it can get a little bit confusing. But if you have publicly disclosed your invention without having anything filed, then that starts the 1 year bar ticking. Okay, but what you referenced, a provisional application, there is also a 1 year period in that. And basically, when you file a provisional application, you have actually, your rights are set at that point with whatever you have filed, whatever you have in that provisional application, and you filed with the patent office, that is yours, and you have priority to that date based on that, what is disclosed in that patent application. And you have 1 year from the time of filing to file a non-provisional application, which is basically just a regular, what people would consider a regular application that can issue into a patent if the USPTO approves it.
Wonderful. So Palash, since you also mentioned about international markets, right? What happens in other countries? Do you also have this system of provisional, non-provisional? If somebody wants to file a PCT, how does that work?
So, to answer the question, a lot of the PCT is an international application from which you can designate different countries where you would be seeking rights, and it's only recommended that you seek rights if you're entering the market with your product in that country. Having said that, one thing to mention here is that the U.S. offers a 1 year grace period from the public disclosure date. A lot of countries don't. And so it's really important in order to maximize your chances of securing a patent applications in a number of jurisdictions, to file the patent application before any public disclosure, so that you not only preserve rights in the US, you also preserve rights in all these other markets where you plan to enter with your product.
And does a provisional count as a filing? As you mentioned, that gives you priority on your invention. Does that count in international markets as well?
So you can have a US provisional and have a PCT application file a PCT application within the 1 year period of the provisional application and have that applied to. But again, the PCT application will examine when was your disclosure.
Right. All right. So we hear a lot about IP strategy, right? And innovators hear about it, startups hear about it. Large companies definitely have an IP strategy in place. We've heard a lot about IBM's IP strategy and thousands of patents that they have. Can you help the smaller companies think through what an IP strategy should look like for them? What is an IP strategy and what should it look like for them? If they're working with a single product that is going to get to market, how should they think about an IP strategy?
Well, I can tell you how I would approach it for a medical device startup, a smaller company, a startup. I would focus on a few things first. And number one is what is your core technology? Because your core technology is going to kind of dictate what type of IP protection you're going to need. Also, what Palash mentioned, what are your key markets? A lot of startup companies their key market is going to be the US. And cost is also going to be potentially prohibitive into going into foreign countries. However, I saw a situation not that long ago where we had a case where it was a medical device startup, and they had gotten the Canadian equivalent to FDA approval. And so they were ready to open up clinics in Canada. They had US protection, they had Canadian protection, but they did not have any applications that were still alive, meaning that they could still be prosecuted, and claims could be modified to more to target, exactly what they were trying to protect. And so what they had protected in Canada was more limited. So if it's possible to file a PCT, like Palash said, I think that is highly recommended. So based on and then budget, unfortunately, like all parts of our lives, budget is going to drive exactly how much IP, how robust your IP protection is going to be. I would, for a few bullet points on where I would go with IP strategy is, number one, make sure you have a good NDA and make sure you use it. Engage with your attorney often. As Palash said, file as early as you can, and you can file a provisional. One thing to remember is that when because a lot of companies, and especially people who have not dealt with IP, they think, well, a provisional is a lot cheaper, so I'm going to do that first, and it gives me a year. And that is true. But when you file that application, whatever is in that provisional, that is the only thing that you get priority for. So if you, a year later, go and file your non-provisional, your regular application, and you claim priority back to that provisional, if you add stuff to that non-provisional, that doesn't get priority all the way back to that provisional filing date. So for that reason, if possible, if budget allows, I recommend making a provisional as robust as possible, and not just. You can just file a sheet of paper that just scratch, that is very terse and doesn't have a lot of details in it as a provisional, but it's not going to give you a lot of protection. So I would say file as robust or provisional as you can afford, and then engage with your attorney and make sure they know when you're coming up with new features and improvements to the core technology, to decide whether or not you potentially want to try and protect those new features. And if you don't want to protect them, that helps you have a mindset of whether or not you want to disclose them, or give your company more time to decide whether or not to get protection. You can continue on and not disclose them and kind of kick the can down the road a little bit, to decide whether or not you want to actually file for protection.
So that's an interesting point, Leslie, right? Like, I file a provisional today, 6 months down the line, I have added some more features to my technology. I am still not ready to pull the plug on the non-provisional because I know that I need a little more research before I can, make the claims that I want to make. If I need to have protection over the new features that I've come up with in that time, can I add those to my existing provisional, or do I have to file a new provisional?
You file a new provisional.
New provisional, okay.
And then
All
when you
right.
file a non-provisional, if you decide to file a non-provisional, you can claim priority back to both of those provisionals in one non-provisional application. Or you can file two. You can do it either way.
Yeah, so that's a very important nuance, right? Like, that a lot of people miss. They file the provisional and then they forget, in the time between provisional and non-provisional, if new things are coming up, it all gets clubbed into the non-provisional, which, as you mentioned, new features will not get the priority date if they've not been filed. So, Palash, since you work more with larger firms, right? What can startups learn? How do larger firms think about IP strategy, and what can startups learn from how larger firms operate?
Yeah, so this is what I was actually getting to, and it is important to understand and look at patents as business assets. Patents are business assets that help companies maintain market share, subject matter exclusivity, and perception of thought leadership in the subject matter that they're operating in. And so, large companies they file patents not just as an offensive manner to capture and maintain subject matter exclusivity and to prevent others from coming into their domain, but also defensively to they build out a portfolio, whether it is in the subject matter that they are practicing, whether their products are, or not, they'll get patents in a subject matter just to counter and patent or settle a lawsuit from a competitor. So they look at it both from an offensive standpoint and defensive standpoint. It's really important to understand and going back to the fine points and provisionals that Leslie also made here, really important to understand that you don't have to have the product, have the new features integrated into your product before you file for patent protection. You can imagine it and then you can put it on the patent application, and that is a constructive reduction to practice. It's a technical term of art, but basically it means you can get patent protection on an idea or a feature, even if it's not integrated yet into your product. And so, if you have come up with an idea, if you have come up with a new feature, put it on a patent application, file it away as a provisional, and that way you can have some provisional rights, if it's a provisional application. So that's what's called constructive reduction of practice. And so what large companies I see large do is like they will have an offensive strategy, they will have a defensive strategy, they will have a licensing strategy as well, where a lot of the patent assets that they have accumulated that they are not litigating or they're not practicing, they often out license it out to competitors or even companies in different markets and different subject matter areas.
Right, wonderful. And I think you brought a very deep nuance into the conversation about it's called intellectual property, right? Which means that ideas are very much a part of your protection. You don't have to conduct the experiments and actually get all the information before you can file a patent. So let's switch gears a little bit, and we're talking about MedTech. And in today's day and age, with MedTech, there is SaaS, there is IoT, there is AI. You have at least some element of this in your innovation. How should innovators think about protecting their SaaS, AI, IoT hardware? We are very clear. It's a utility patent, and we know it's traditionally, we know how to protect it. As now we have more and more products that have software, AI, IoT as part of their hardware, how should they approach patenting in that space?
Yes, software patenting has been an issue, has been like a matter of matter of opinion and going back and forth and a lot of confusion generally. But I think software can be patented, and especially functional aspects of software such as algorithms or a particular arrangement of a graphical user interface, those can be patented. The key to procuring a software patent is uh, being able to tell a story, like everything else. Being able to tell a story, how the software ties to your hardware. And I think this is where medtech companies have an advantage in that, whereas, software companies, filing for software patents, they have to contend with describing their software. MedTech companies can actually describe how their software is tied to the hardware and tell a story how the software is an improvement over the what the existing technology is and how it can fulfill the end goal of the product. So rather than explaining, there are certain, strategies and tricks and best practices to writing a disclosure for a software invention. I think software certainly can be patented, and it's really important to tell a good story. That's my 2 cents.
So protecting the functionality rather than the actual coding of the patent.
Actual coding would probably qualify under copyright protection because it's the particular expression of the code, but the underlying algorithm or some other aspect of the software, if it's an improvement, then yeah, it can be patented.
Leslie?
Yeah, I agree with that. It definitely can be patented. It does need to be tied to your hardware, and I think Palash is absolutely right that MedTech companies typically are that would be sort of their sweet spot, right? They come up with some kind of device and they have software that helps them monitor a medical condition in a kind of unique way or an improved way. Those are definitely patentable. Where you would get into a little more gray area and be a little bit more difficult is if you were just automating a process, automating a medical process, or if it had to do with medical records, and you're just basically taking that process and putting it on a generic computer. And it's great because it's more efficient for the process. But if you're not doing something new that can be explained and that can be told in a story, like Palash said, about the type of improvement that it is, and the new steps that make it that improvement, then that is going to be more difficult to get patented.
Right.
Oh, I'd just like to add one more thing too, about, because recently where Famita and I met, we listened to a lot of MedTech startups describe their inventions, and they were trying to get funding. And I would say, I don't know, maybe 70% of the ones that I heard talked about having AI. And that's great. And I do think it is going to revolutionize and completely change almost every industry, and definitely the medical industry. But just having AI is not necessarily going to get you make you your idea more patentable. When you apply AI, you need to think about what's the data that is going to go in. Are you using a conventional machine learning model? What kind of data are you putting into it? Are you doing anything to the data before you feed it in to train the model? What are you doing with the data when it comes out of the model? Are you doing something creative with that data or something different that is like an improvement to what is currently being done? So just saying, I have this great invention, it's going to do this, and we're going to use AI, that's not going to sway an examiner that your idea is patentable.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, you have to talk about how you're going to use the data and how you're going to use machine learning to create quote unquote artificial intelligence. So let's flip that a little bit. I hear more, even in the patent writing field, I hear about AI agents being available to help write patents. So I wanted to see, do you guys use any AI to help you with your patent development process? And then as more and more of these companies come about that claim they can help you get your patents, right, with AI, when should a company think about using the AI agent, and when should a company think about working with a lawyer? Can you help us make that distinction?
Well, I can tell you that it's a good timing here, because yesterday I actually attended a presentation from somebody in my firm. We have a trial subscription to one of the AI learning tools, or one of the AI patent drafting tools. There are different kinds of tools, but this one is more of like what I think Palash would describe as like a co-pilot, where you input like your figures, and you say to the tool, draft a paragraph to describe this figure, and you tell it what all of the parts in the figure, how they should be, what terms should be used to describe them. And anyway, in this presentation, I have not used it yet. I'm actually going to be using it in August on an application for the first time. He put up a screen showing what was generated by the tool and how much editing he did. He showed the redline copy, and it was a lot of redlining. The tools, and we looked at a lot of tools before we landed on this one to try. And we felt like it was one of the best of the ones that we saw. And he said that it's the tools are not ready to generate an application for you. It's just there's just nothing out there that can do that. If there is a tool out there that's saying they can do that, I would strongly recommend that you hire somebody to take a look at it before you submit it to the patent office. Because based on what I've seen, they're just not quite there yet. It could be completely different in 5 years. Now, that said, the attorney in my firm who gave the presentation, he said that even though he had to do a lot of editing, he did feel like it was useful because it fleshed out different things that an attorney could flesh out, but it takes a lot of time and they may not be as complete or whatever. And so he did feel like it was worth using, even in spite of the limitations that are currently there. And it claims to be able to create figures, but the figures are not really usable yet.
Kailash, have you had any experience with it, and how do you recommend companies should engage with AI-based tools versus attorneys?
So I think I have tried a number of AI copilots for their demos, and I think they're very helpful. But then one thing to remember is that they will give you information that can help you write up a patent application faster. But I think what's missing is, these tools are geared towards doing volume work, which is what law firms do. And so when a company files like 1 or 2 patents a year, the subscriptions that these the AI copilots offer, it's too expensive for them. It's not pay per use. That's one comment I have. And secondly, you still need an attorney to like review and finalize. And in order to get a patent, there's a point that I want to raise here. Like writing up a patent application doesn't give you rights. What gives you rights at the end of a 2-3 year journey after filing the patent applications is an attorney who represents your best interests and negotiates the subject matter with the examiner so that you can have a patent at the end, which gives you rights. Until then, you only have patent pending. So an attorney's job is to give you a patent. Part of it is writing up the patent, and part of writing up a patent, can be sped up with using an AI copilot, but there's that's only, I would say, 10% of an attorney's job in getting someone a patent. So definitely recommend having an attorney throughout the process. Maybe your costs could be lower because of the AI speeding up timing writing the patent application, but in terms of unless someone's doing volume work, which typically happens at large companies, for a startup, we definitely recommend working with an attorney.
Right. And you said it, right? I am all about strategy. And so writing a patent is a very tactical thing. But having an attorney will help you craft your strategy. How do you best protect your protection? How will this patent help you with your commercialization strategy, your exit strategy, your product development strategy, so on and so forth?
Right.
And so, the tactical part of it, which is writing parts of the patent, you could potentially use some AI tools, but that's not going to give you that element of strategizing and defending your patent and getting the right patent protection that your company needs. So I want to talk a little bit about freedom to operate. If you have a patent, do you have freedom to operate?
Not if you're infringing someone else's patent.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, freedom to operate is typically talked about in terms of getting a freedom to operate opinion. So it would be even before you would get a patent or apply for a patent, or maybe you've applied for it and you do it afterwards. But it basically goes out there and your search can be just in the US or it can be all over the world, or anything in between. And it's basically looking to make sure that what your technology, that you're not necessarily what's exactly in your patent, but what you want to make and sell or license is not infringing on someone else's patent. That's what a freedom to operate opinion is. And that's, um, I mean, that's what people do when when they're asked to do a freedom to operate opinion. They do that search. So if you have a patent, um, if you do a search and you find another patent, then that's going to basically depend on which one of you and your patent, what your patent is falls squarely within the claims of that other patent. Basically it means the patent office didn't see that ahead of time when you were prosecuting your patent. So then it's going to come down to who filed first and, some other considerations too. But yeah.
So when should a company think about doing the freedom to operate analysis? From what I understand, it's an expensive endeavor, right? So from a planning and strategy perspective, when should a company plan to do a FTO?
I think FTOs should be conducted before the product design is frozen, as in
Okay.
at some point you have an idea and then it turns to design engineers to design the product, right? And then you go through multiple iterations of design typically. So before the product design is finalized and sent to manufacturing for production, I think that's when FTOs should be done, because any information that the product can potentially infringe on another product can before the design is frozen, you can mitigate by designing around it and
Mhm.
making sure that it doesn't infringe. Once the design freezes and the infringing product goes into manufacturing, it becomes really expensive. Now you have to stop manufacturing and go back and design around. So it becomes even more expensive if you're not doing an FTO analysis, freedom to operate analysis, before the design is frozen. So it's basically, before launching, FTO should be done before launching a product, but ideally it should be done before the design is frozen.
Right. No, and you make a very good point, because in the medtech space, even if you have a predicate device, you might still need a 510(k) class 2 or FDA approval, which means that you'll have to do some clinical studies. You have to go down the regulatory pathway, which are time consuming and also, resource intensive. And so if you go down that pathway without knowing whether you have freedom to operate, it can create a lot of issues down the line.
Yes.
I'd like to add something to that too. I noticed at the conference where Famita and I were that a number of companies, when asked about freedom to operate, they said they didn't say they had a freedom to operate opinion. They said conducted our own search and it looks good. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that, but if they have a patent pending and they're conducting their own search, one thing that could be a landmine if they don't keep this in mind is that anything that they find during that search needs to be forwarded to their attorney, because as an inventor on a patent application, you have a duty to disclose everything that you know about that could affect the examiner's decision on whether or not to grant you a patent. And it's to your benefit to do that, because the more prior art that the examiner examines, the stronger your patent is. The closer the prior art is to what you're doing, if you still get a patent, that makes your patent all the more strong. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing your own search, and you have this patent pending over here, you need to make sure you're communicating with your attorney and giving them all the information that you find.
Right, right. Keep in touch with your attorney all the time. And I think that kind of is a general rule for most inventors, right? If you have a consultant, if you have an attorney, if you have a regulatory person, if you have a business person, keeping them informed about what's happening in your company is the best way you can help, reduce errors and make them engaged and involved so that they can support you at the right time and, help you before it's too late. So we could keep talking about this. I have many more questions, but I know we have 10 minutes remaining. And so I would like to open it up to the audience.